Greetings, my name is Dan Millard, PhD candidate at Liberty University, and I'm here today at the site of the Goldsboro Union Station. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the importance of local history preservation by doing a comparative analysis of two sites, one of which has not been preserved and one of which that is very well preserved, and demonstrate the difference in what local history preservation does in relaying our history, our heritage, and our legacy to the public. By using a Civil War history story that is deeply intertwined but have two very different outcomes in terms of history preservation. Standing behind me here is the Goldsboro Union Station, a railway station that is not the original. This was actually moved here and constructed in 1905. But the initial Goldsboro Union Station was an important link on the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad. It had connecting junctions from Wilmington all the way up through Goldsboro and up into Virginia, and also here from Goldsboro all the way to the state capitol in Raleigh. And as a result, this location, the community of Goldsboro, was actually the primary target of General William Tecumseh Sherman's Carolinas campaign here in North Carolina. And so in the late spring of 1865, Sherman, in his right wing, which he was joined with coming from Aversboro and Bentonville, were journeying to Goldsboro, and they were meeting up with his other forces from Schofield, who were coming in from the Kinston and Battle of Wise Fork area. They had come up from New Bern and Wilmington as well on that side, and their goal was joining here in Goldsboro to control the Union Station, to shut down Confederate supply lines, and to also resupply their army. I'm standing here now at the coal plantation, or part of the coal plantation sites here at the Bentonville Battleground Historic Site. This is one of the many drivable areas that you can go to, one of the many historical markers throughout the entire preserved area. The coal plantation is actually the site of the onset of the confrontation that happened here at Bentonville, as some of the Union forces were coming through the field. Part of Sherman's right wing that he was with, he had actually began his direction to head more directly towards Goldsboro, and here Union forces were surprised when they encountered General Johnston's forces here, and believing that most of the Confederate forces would have been closer to Raleigh. Upon meeting them here and being initially repulsed back at this location here on the coal plantation, is when he then relayed to Sherman that he needed assistance immediately, and Sherman brought the full force of his army here to help deal with the Confederates led by General Johnston. And it is from that initial onslaught here that they actually begin setting up the Union Field Hospital right down at the Harper home at the main site of the Bentonville Battleground, about a mile down the road here. So let's check that out. I am here now at the Bentonville Battlefield State Historic Site, the site of the largest Civil War battle in the state of North Carolina, and an important step in the close of the Civil War in the spring of 1865. It is here that General William Tecumseh Sherman and his forces, as a part of his Carolinas campaign, clashed with the Confederate forces of General Joseph E. Johnston. Throughout this battlefield, more than 80,000 men entered battle, with a total of more than 4,000 casualties, over 2,600 of those being on the Confederate side. Following the activities of this battle, Sherman and his troops would continue to progress towards their goal of Goldsboro and the ultimate objective of shutting down the Confederate supply lines there and ensuring those of the Union. Together with those actions, Johnston would retreat back to Raleigh, which in the coming weeks would then fall to Sherman as well, leading to eventually the surrender at the site in Durham at Bennett Place, where ultimately the largest surrender of the entire Civil War was secured. Bentonville Battleground stands as a great example of historic preservation, a site whose history of preservation begins with local history and those of the community beginning to preserve this area dating back to the 1950s and 60s. It was not until 1976 that Bentonville Battleground was established as a part of the National Register of Historic Places, and ultimately was not dedicated as a National Historic Landmark until 1996. So throughout this era, the preservation of history has been ongoing by those of the local community, local historians, and then ultimately became a part of the State History Conservation Project as well, in association with the American Battlefield Trust, which has helped to preserve a lot of the acreage of this site. Today, over 2,000 acres of this battlefield are preserved, and those efforts are still ongoing. Ultimately, this site has been fleshed out to contain not only different parts of actual battlefields, cemeteries, original trenches, but also things such as slave quarters, which are directly in the background to the camera here. Or behind me here you see the Harper House, which was actually a home here at the Harper Plantation, Harper Farm, a home of a Revolutionary War veteran that was converted into a hospital for the Union Army during the Battle of Bentonville. Today this site not only has historic landmarks like the Harper House preserved, but it also has more than 10 miles of different drivable sites that you may go to. It also has a visitor center that has exhibits dedicated to the artifacts that have been found across the different sections of land belonging to the historic site, as well as information on each of the generals and of course the activities of war, as well as a video of the battle that you can watch to explain what exactly unfolded on this site. One of the most active parts of this site today is more than 5 miles of walking trails where you can actually walk right along original trenches dug by the Union and Confederate forces here. And speaking with the workers up at the visitor center, today this site is visited by more than 65,000 people a year, up from 45,000 people just about 6 or 7 years ago. And so the interest in local history, the activities of those who work here to engage in public history to educate the community is ongoing and has seen a rise in interest. And in speaking with the workers here, many of those that actually visited this site were people who were looking for historic places to visit. It was not usually members of the local community. As a result, they have done several community engagement projects, and as a result, they have seen increasing interest in the local community to find more about what is going on here or what has happened here, the history and legacy associated with this place. And that there demonstrates the importance of local history, what it's able to communicate to the public about the history, legacy, and heritage of a location, and the visual representation that it is able to get by preserving the sites and keeping them as true to their original form as possible. Thank you for joining me here at Bentonville Battlefield, and join me now as we transition over to another site. I'm here now at another part of the Bentonville Battleground historic site, part of the driving tour area, and it is in this field directly behind me where Confederate General Joseph E. Johnston had set up his field headquarters. And it is in this field that directly over here to my left, camera right, is where General Millard of the Union Army delivered what was effectively a flank assault that threatened to eliminate Johnston's only avenue of surrender from the Bentonville battleground area. Thankfully for General Johnston, some of his forces, reinforcements from General Hardee, were actually in the area and were able to hold back Millard enough that it forced him to push back to Sherman as Hardee and his troop pushed back to Johnston, and Johnston was able to flee the Bentonville area and retreat towards Smithfield and up more back towards the area of Raleigh. What ultimately occurred here at this site is what then enabled General Sherman and his forces to claim the Bentonville area and push forward quickly to his ultimate goal of Goldsboro. And so between March 19th and March 21st, that is when the battle ultimately concluded here at Bentonville, and the next day Sherman was able to set out and reach Goldsboro by March 23rd of 1865, his ultimate goal at that time. Following the success at the Battle of Bentonville, General Sherman and his Union troops were able to then meet up here with Schofield's army coming in, and they were able to control the city of Goldsboro and achieve his ultimate goal here in North Carolina, which was cutting off Confederate supply lines and controlling this as a new supply line and way to resupply his troops here in Goldsboro. It is known that they stayed here for more than 3 weeks in preparations for marching further to Raleigh, where they would eventually go on and to secure basically the surrender of the Confederate forces up in Durham at Bennett Place. And they stayed here in preparation for that. At that point, some 100,000 Union troops stayed right here in Goldsboro for that duration. And even following the conclusion of the Civil War, it is known that a good handful of Sherman's troops actually stuck around and remained in Goldsboro through the Reconstruction era. And so part of this shows the great importance of local history preservation, or the lack thereof, in the forgotten history that can occur when local history is not preserved. For some, just a delve into that local history here would display why some of the street names here have the names that they have, being tied to both Union or Confederate generals. For some, it may be a genealogical history that could actually trace some of their genes right back to some of those soldiers that remained here in this area. Or like we see at a place like Bentonville, it's an opportunity for tourism and for others to come in and build a connection, or locals as well, to build a connection with the true history and heritage that exists in a place, to understand the significance that the community has held. Thank you for joining me for this delve into local history preservation through 2 key sites of the Civil War era here in North Carolina.